G'day, I'm Paul. One of the cars we haven't reviewed on the channel recently, or just ever for that matter, is the Mazda CX-3, and it's one of the best-selling cars in Australia. So I thought, let's get behind the wheel of it and see why it's still one of the best-selling cars in the country. This one here, it's the G20 Evolve, so it's two up from the base model. It's priced at a little over 30 grand. If that is too expensive, the entire range kicks off at just over 25 grand. Now, a little while back, that actually sounded like a lot of money, but given where cars have gone, how expensive they've become, it is actually at the more affordable end of the scale, but it is a pretty old car. I mean, this was originally crash tested in like 2015, so it's been out for quite some time. Typically, they're crash tested after they're new, so it's been out for a little while. So we'll see if it is still good value for money today. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you can find out every single time we review one of these. And if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes that are on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below. Now, in terms of your optional colours, just under $600, and that is, again, also reasonable money. A lot of manufacturers have gone crazy to just jab you wherever they can. So high purchase price, high colour price, high dealer delivery. So they're just trying every little bit they can to extract as much money as they can from you. But Mazda has been pretty sensible with this in terms of pricing. Given its age, I guess they kind of have to. On the design front, look, this is basically an SUV version of the Mazda 2, so it sits a little bit higher off the ground, but in effect, you'll notice on the inside that it is virtually just a Mazda 2. And look, the design is still pretty smart. If we're talking about a car now that is, what, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 10 years old or even older, it still actually looks pretty good. They've been able to just add a few of those design elements like this interior and some of these cooler looking colors to make it look and feel quite modern. So big grille over here with that chrome section down the bottom there, and then the matte black finish down the bottom there as well. Full LED headlights, you have fog lights down the bottom there as well with an indicator built in. Front parking sensors too to match the rear ones. Now around the side here, these wheels look pretty good too. So you've got a machined finish there and then a piano black finish on the inside. And that's sitting on a set of 18-inch alloy wheels. Look how little those brakes are. Given it doesn't weigh a huge amount, they're probably going to do the job perfectly fine, but they just look so tiny there in that 18-inch alloy wheel. And big wheel arch cladding here, despite the fact that this is front-wheel drive only for the entire range and a ground clearance of like 150 mils. So you're not going to be doing any off-road driving at all, but you do have that higher hit point to get in and out, which is one of the advantages of this over and above a Mazda 2. Piano black on the wing mirror there. You've got body-coloured door handles, more of that black section that runs along the bottom here. And come around to the back with me. Now, despite this engine not changing a great deal, it has now been coined the Skyactiv G. You've got a CX-3 badge over here as well. LED taillights, or partial LED taillights. You still have a bit of halogen in there as well. Shark fin aerial up the top there, and then a wiper over here as well. That matte black finish down the bottom here too. Now, this was kind of the norm for the cheaper entry-level cars when they didn't have a body-coloured bumper, but here it actually suits the car. I think it looks great there with that offset colour, so it's actually not a bad design at all. The dual exhaust pipes as well. So let me know what you reckon. This has been out for ages. Do you think it still looks good, or do you reckon it is starting to show its age? Let me know in the comments section below. So welcome to the interior of the CX-3. We'll start off with the key. You got the Mazda logo on the back there, nothing on the front, and then lock and unlock. Proximity sensing key, so you can leave that in your pocket. You've got a push button start over here. Look, this is comprehensively old now. Given that this car has been out for 10 plus years, it is starting to feel its age. They actually got an update to the Mazda 2 and the CX-3 overseas with a bigger screen, but for some reason we don't seem to have that. We still have this old school setup with the old MZD Connect infotainment system, which is stepping back in time. But like I said before, they've gone to a bit of effort here to update the interior and just make it look and feel, I don't know, just a bit more modern. So it's simple stuff like this suede material, the seats as well. I mean, these look very high end for a car here that is effectively at the entry level SUV range for Mazda. So at least they're sort of keeping up with those appearances, but you know, analog gauges and then this sort of old school digital telemetry off to the sides is just starting to feel a little bit dated. But what about your touch points? So soft in the middle there. Hard on the doors. How soft is it? We've got our durometer. We've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you do want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, look at the link in the description below. Now, build quality. You would have thought they would have ironed all of this stuff out by now. It all feels sort of fairly solid, and this is what our door slam sounds like. Now, About 10, 15 years ago, this was probably okay. It's called MZD Connect. It's powered by an 8-inch infotainment screen. It's pretty sort of primitive stuff. It's got this sort of iDrive-esque controller down here. It does have satellite navigation built in, and Mazda has gone to the effort of putting things like wireless smartphone mirroring in there as well. So I guess that is not such a bad thing, but yeah, it is pretty clumsy to use. I've never really liked this system, and yeah, even stuff like the touchscreen not working while you're driving, it's just a couple of little fiddly things like that. So, but anyway, radio front, you have AM, FM, DAB, digital radio, and then you have a 6-speaker sound system. Sound system's nothing sort of too crazy, nothing special. And then I'll show you what CarPlay looks like on the screen there. So you can see there, because we're parked now, I can operate CarPlay. A little bit laggy there, but you know, it does the job. You have CarPlay, which is the main thing. Now, in terms of the screen ahead of the driver, you have just a couple of very basic sort of monochrome displays with an analog gauge in the center there. You do have a head-up display. It sort of folds out on this plastic screen, and then it gives you a clear indication of what's going on ahead of you. Let's talk about safety. So you've got autonomous emergency braking at city speeds, an auto-dimming rear vision mirror. You have cruise control, no radar cruise control, but you do have front and rear parking sensors and a blind spot monitor. Show you what the reverse camera looks like. So there it is there. It is pretty low quality. It's sort of difficult to see what's going on behind the car, but you've got some guidelines there, so I guess it's better than nothing. And this is what your horn sounds like. So moving on to practicality, and we'll start off with your connectivity. So down here you've got 2 USB-A ports and a 12-volt outlet. You've got a little slot here as well for an SD card, which is for your navigation. No wireless phone charging around here. A little bit of storage in the center there as well, with a little flip-out cup holder, which I think is quite clever. It's kind of cool. Glove box off to the side here, which is actually pretty reasonably sized. And then, got any other storage around here? Sunglasses holder up the top, but that's about it. On your comfort front, you have single zone automatic climate control. Goes all the way up to 32 degrees, which is pretty impressive. You have manual seat adjustment for both the driver and front passenger. Like I mentioned before, these seats look pretty cool. They're fairly comfortable as well, given this car's been out for such a long time. Kind of nailed the brief there in terms of making it a comfortable driving position. On the steering front, you have both tilt and reach adjustment, and let's do our reach test. Kind of pointless actually, given, oh, that's snagged, there we go. Kind of pointless actually, given that you can only do this while you're stationary. Now, second row. Very comfortable if you're not tall. Yeah, it is. There is no room back here at all. This is kind of where this segment has evolved, even though they are still based on the smaller versions of their cars. This is no longer acceptable in terms of interior space. So no knee room, toe room's fine, headroom is reasonable, no air vents, no connectivity back here. You know, this is really starting to feel like it needs a comprehensive refresh. You do have a center armrest there with 2 cup holders, but even that, I'm just crammed into this space here. It is surprising how poorly packaged this car actually is. And look, it might be fine if you're not sort of ferrying kids around and have people in your second row all the time, but yeah, it is a bit of a compromise there. Now, does the window go down all the way? Let's have a look. Not quite. Now let's talk cargo space. So it is only a small vehicle, so you don't have a huge amount of room. You have just over 250 litres here just in its standard trim, but it does have a couple of party tricks. So you've got this multi-leveled floor that you can move up and down. And then beneath the cargo floor, you have a space saver spare wheel. I'll show you what it looks like with our, whoops, with our Pelican case in there. Got a bit of Pelican here, can't get this thing in. There we go, it's harder than it looks. Okay, so, this thing is heavy. I don't know how these guys lug these around. There it is there, that's the Pelican case inside the boot. So you can imagine that it's not a huge amount of space. If you want to fit something like a pram in here, it is going to be a pretty tight squeeze, given this is based off the Mazda 2. It's not exactly an enormous space, but you can expand it a little bit more if you do want to sacrifice your second row passengers, and that increases that space to just over 1,100 litres. Then you also have a light and then a couple of hooks there off to the side as well. Are you looking for some advice but don't want a hard sell? Well, I am here to help. Well, CarExpert is here to help. All you need to do is go to Google and type in "Help Me CarExpert" or scan the QR code on the screen. It'll take you to our website. CarExpert is a big business. It's not just me here doing videos. We even have a concierge team in Australia who is there to help you figure out which car to buy. We can even put you in touch with one of our friendly dealers as well. It is obligation free. You can talk to someone in Australia who will guide you through the entire process. You can talk to my mate Pete or even Sophia. All you need to do is just Google "Help Me CarExpert" or use the QR code and we will hook you up with the right car. So we've just hit the road in the CX-3. Where are we? We're not at the proving ground, obviously. We had to shoot this not at the proving ground today because there's some big stuff happening there and I couldn't adjust the timing. So we're just out on the lovely streets of Melbourne for a change. And that is going to mean we can't do performance testing, can't do our brake testing because we don't have a safe environment to do that. So we will wait till we get this car back at the proving ground for that. Today's going to be all about driving this in and around the city and what it feels like on a brief little highway stint as well. So straight off the bat, this does feel a little bit old here behind the wheel, and I know I've said that 1,000 times in this review, but it doesn't actually feel ancient. And what I mean by that is a lot of older cars didn't have the ride quality, they didn't have the steering feel. This, on the other hand, doesn't feel overly heavy, it just feels nice here behind the wheel, and because it doesn't have all of those annoying safety nannies, you're not getting beeped at constantly. And it is quite funny, you need all that stuff today to get a 5-star rating. And in fact, this car is unrated because of how stupid that system is. They basically say that you get 5 stars and then after the car's been out for a little while, you get no stars. So this car's gone from being a 5-star car overnight to just not having any stars. And that to me just does not make any sense at all. But the benefit of that is that you don't have any of the ridiculous stuff they have on cars these days that you do need to get a 5-star rating. So it's not beeping at me for not watching the road. It's not constantly worrying about speed signs. It is actually just a comfortable place to be driving. But you do still get some of that text. So on the head-up display, I can see the speed limit displayed there. If I need to see it, and then if I go over the speed limit, nothing happens. It doesn't sort of annoy me and do all that sort of stuff, which is excellent news. One thing you do notice though is something that was typical on older Mazda models, and that is a lot of road noise. And I am noticing that as we're driving around here. Even at these lower speeds, you do notice a fair bit of road noise coming into the cabin. Same story with the engine. It makes a fair old racket, and that is just because it is quite dated technology. 2-litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder petrol engine makes 110 kilowatts of power, 195 newton meters of torque. So barely enough there to set your world on fire. And if you do have this vehicle full of passengers, it is going to feel fairly sluggish. But the advantage is that you are getting relatively good fuel economy. So the official claim is just over 6 litres per 100 Ks. We're currently sitting on 7.3, 7.4 litres per 100 Ks. So still pretty efficient for a petrol vehicle. Part of the reason this is so effective when it comes to its fuel economy is its weight. It is under 1,300 kilos. So that is barely anything for a vehicle this size. So it is fairly nimble in that sense to park it. Even an electric car this size is 16, 17, 1,800 kilos. So it is pretty remarkable that, you know, we've gone kind of backwards in terms of curb mass when it comes to, you know, making vehicles more efficient. But anyway, it is just the future we're heading towards. Now, one thing I'm not a fan of here is the stop-start system. If I come to a stop and it switches off, when it comes back on, can take a little while. It's quite rough. It's sort of not one of those modern stop-start systems that you're finding on vehicles with a mild hybrid setup. They tend to be much smoother and just easier in terms of the way that they kick over. So not the end of the world, but yeah, just something I don't love about the way that it drives. So this does have a torsion beam rear end, so it's not exactly the most complicated suspension setup. Torsion beam suspension is typically used on cheaper vehicles, and you do notice the effects of that when you are hitting potholes and other corrugations on city streets. Not the end of the world, but just something that it is worth pointing out. And that does mean that the ride can be a little bit choppy sometimes. Yeah, again, not the end of the world, but just not the plushest ride on the road. Now, let's talk about your drive modes. You've got a sport mode here. Flick that on, let's see what this does. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, look, that is It's noisy, it's got a fair bit of body roll. Yeah, it's not exactly going to set the world on fire in terms of its handling, which is perfectly fine. It's a city SUV, but yeah, just thought I'd give it a crack anyway. So you will notice now that we're on a sort of highway here that it is a little bit noisier there in terms of road noise. This is also where you're going to notice that there are no sort of lane support systems here. It doesn't have any of that stuff that you're finding on a lot of the other competitors in this segment at the moment. Not the end of the world. A lot of that stuff doesn't really work that well, but it just helps with fatigue. You don't even have like radar cruise control, so it's just sort of basic on and off for cruise control, which is a little bit disappointing, but you can sort of just venture further up into the range to get that sort of stuff. So the only feature you do have is a lane departure warning. So as you sort of cross the line there, it beeps at you a little bit, but it's not able to, you know, hold the vehicle in the lane and do the sort of lane support systems you're going to find in a lot of modern small SUVs today. Let's talk about visibility. So being a small vehicle, it's actually quite good. You can see clearly down the front there. These wing mirrors are enormous for a vehicle this size, so easy to see down the sides. At the back, visibility is fine as well. So from that point of view, it's all good. Mentioned already the road noise. It is sort of something that you will notice, especially as the speed picks up on coarse chip surfaces. But again, not the end of the world if you are spending most of your time in and around the city. Okay, so Mazda CX-3, what do we think? Well, look, it is getting on in age, just like me. And unlike me, it actually still feels fairly new inside and I guess fairly new to drive as well. It isn't the newest in the segment, and as a result of that, I think that if you are going to be buying one of these, you really do want to be driving a very sharp price. They have stacks of these sitting around, and I think that if you do want a new car that still feels new behind the wheel, this is going to be a good option as long as you get it for that good price. So let me know in the comments section below, have you owned one of these for a while? What has it been like in terms of long-term reliability, and what is resale like as well? I'm keen to find out. If you did enjoy the video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.